Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, November 22nd, 2023, and coming to you from the brand new Lonely Tree Media headquarters in Tacoma, Washington, this is the Best Lamb Sports Show.
It's a 55-yard attempt. Myers' career long is 61, and it was on this field 3 years ago to give Seattle the lead. And Sean McVay is going to put him on ice for a few more seconds. He uses his final timeout.
I think you have to go back to that.
Officially 8 seconds on the clock. Jason Myers from 55 yards away. Kick on the way, leaking right, and it's no good!
So I'm your host, David Lamm. With me is my son, Parker. Say hello, Parker.
Hello, Parker.
That was the ending of the Rams-Seahawks games, in case you missed it. A missed field goal, and the Seahawks can't beat the Rams twice this year, right? They've got, what, 4 losses, 3 losses? What are they, 7-3?
Something like that.
And they've lost
not bad enough.
Twice to the Rams. I don't know. I mean, that was, it was good. It was an interesting game to watch. The Seahawks are 6-4, and they lose 17-16 to the Rams. We'll talk about the NFL a little bit more in a minute, but we want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. This is our Thanksgiving episode, so Thanksgiving is tomorrow. Hopefully everybody's got somewhere to go, got some food to eat, got some family to see. Hope everybody has a safe and fun Thanksgiving weekend. Plus, there's football on tomorrow, right? College football, pro football, everything. The whole world is on tomorrow. You can watch it all in between naps, I guess, because turkey. So let's, you know what? We're going to start with NBA. That's where we're going to start because that's what we're doing. The NBA, in case you missed it, is doing an in-season tournament. And I kind of want to get your feeling on the in-season tournament. Is it anything? Does it mean anything to anybody at this point? They're playing for money, is what they're playing for right now. There's a trophy, right? But there's a prize pool that gets paid out to the teams that make it to the knockout stage. Not every team is going to get money.
Right.
So
it doesn't mean anything. Not at all. Not even kind of. It means nothing. Nothing more than it meant before. It just has a shiny coat of paint on some games, but it's still the same car it was.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, huh? I don't understand the concept behind it. They're trying to make hype around something that really doesn't have any hype.
Well, I understand the function of it to draw ratings on games that typically lack. In-season tournament, you're talking about 20 games into a season. Are you watching every game? Probably not. Or if there's a tournament, maybe you will watch more. Maybe you'll stay watching it longer. Things like that. So they're just it's again the same reason the players might be playing for money. The reason it's happening is for money.
But it's just a rebranding of the same game. That game was going to be played anyway. Just to call it a tournament game doesn't
absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't really.
But if you can convince 30% of your viewership base that it means more now, and they tune in to watch it, that's a substantial bump. The bottom line is the NBA is not going to go out here and spend money on special basketball, special court, special signage, special commercials if they aren't making it back. It's still a business. So the only reason they're doing this is because it's generating some kind of revenue, or at least it's intended to. If it goes away next year, you will know that it did not generate the intended revenue this year.
Yeah, and then all the teams went out and got new courts, right?
As I understand, I was talking with somebody who works for the Nuggets, and they were saying that those were supplied by the league.
Really?
Like you got to design them, but like it was the same manufacturer. Well, you could choose your supplier of them.
That cannot be cheap.
The NBA paid for them. Again, that's why this is all about generating revenue,
right?
Because there's no other thing that it could get them other than eyes or viewership.
And I'll be honest with you, they're kind of ugly.
Some of them are. How do you feel about the Pacers one?
Yeah, the blue and yellow indie one.
I kind of dig it. It reminds me of like a European court.
I was just gonna say that it kind of looks like. Plus, like I was looking at the Bulls one that's all red, and I'm like,
it's kind of wild looking.
It's red with darker red, and the Utah one's purple with darker purple.
Oh, the Nuggets one is so hideous.
With the 5280.
The 5280. Look, I live in Denver now, right? We all know Denver's a mile high.
Really? Is that true?
At some point it is. Not for
somewhere,
most people around here.
Somewhere in Denver.
I think right now I'm probably at like 5100, 5150.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite a mile high.
Yeah.
But we all know it now. And this is a championship team, and you walk them out there in those ugly uniforms and that ugly court.
So, some places in Denver you have to go upstairs to get to 5280.
If you told me that Jokic designed those, I would have said probably. He seems like a guy with no style.
Oh my gosh! You know what? There's something
in my head. There's somebody at Nike who just dropped a ball on this one.
I have never seen Jokic like in his street clothes. I guess I've never really paid attention. I'm sure that in Denver the news media has covered him at a press conference or whatever, but I never see that. And so he
dresses like he shops at Costco, like lots of flannels, lots of regular T-shirts. Like he does not wear anything crazy. Like I've never seen him in like Gucci or Prada or some really nice shoes. He wears basketball shoes to the stadium.
Well, yeah,
like
to change into his basketball.
I swear he's like, they're good enough. They're shoes.
Yep.
I think I saw him in Timberlands once. Like a pregame walk up, and I was like, "Oh, he's branching out."
I don't think in high school I wore anything but basketball shoes. I mean, that's what I wore all the time, like everywhere all the time. So I don't know.
I can't. I remember wanting some shoes in high school, like at different times, being like, "Oh, I'd want those," or "Oh, I'd want those." I remember when we lived in Germany, I got the Kobe's, the moon shoes.
Yeah,
it was like the Kobe 1 or 2 or something like that, like their first signature model or one of their first signature models through Adidas. I had those things. I remember wanting those, but outside of like a handful of shoes, I have no clue what was on my feet for like 20 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
they were just things. They were just functional tools.
Right. Yeah. No. But yeah, high school is what I remember because I remember just living in. I had high top basketball shoes and I had them on all the time. I mean,
did they allow you to play in them as well?
No, I had a pair.
Wear them around.
Yeah, I had a different pair. I had a pair for playing.
Oh, you had a pair game shoes.
Right. So when I came to the when I came to the gym, I was wearing basketball shoes and I changed into actual shoes for the court. I didn't wear the outside shoes inside, but I wore them every day. Basketball. It was just a different kind.
Right.
I wore them every day all the time.
Here's a question for you: when did non-marking shoes come out? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the reason why you can't wear your normal tennis shoes in a gym was because at one point in time, the black like dye on the things would streak the court.
It had to be after I went to high school because we did have a couple people. I do remember that happening. Yeah. So I'm guessing
those animals.
90s had to be in the 90s probably. That's my guess. I don't know. It's a good question. It's a great question. Could be a trivia question.
Could be a trivia question. We'll keep it for next week.
Keep everybody in suspense. Everybody can go look it up, and know it before we get to it.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think that the in-season tournament is anything I'm concerned about. I'm not gonna watch an extra game only to see what the court looks like. Maybe
that's actually the biggest reason to tune in,
right? Because nothing else is really that big a deal, and I don't know. It seems like we're just trying to polish up, crappy games and make them shiny and like, here, this could be great. You could watch this because it's part of the tournament. This means something. It's like the Major League Baseball All-Star game. It means something now. Not really. Not at all.
Yeah, so, not really. If it creates games where teams are playing harder, then I'm for it. And if you can do that without having to incentivize like, first round buys and things like that, then I'm even more for it. If there's a way just to organically get people to play better by changing a court and calling it something, cool.
Yeah.
But the reason why they're doing it is to try and generate some revenue off of these games that people would normally take off.
Yeah. All right. Just thought I would ask because I haven't been watching a whole lot of NBA basketball, but I did watch the Blazers get hammered by the Suns last night.
Yeah, they did. Well, the Blazers are freaking terrible.
Blazers are in the cellar right now, but still don't have the number 1 draft pick if we started today. But I mean, of course, it's a lottery. I get, but there's 2 teams ahead of them already. They've already screwed up and won too many games. So
3 games was too many.
3 games was too many because there's
what is happening?
two teams out there with 2. Anyway, I don't know. I don't even know if you can be worse than the Pistons and the Wizards. You know what though? If I now that I'm saying that, I should probably get tickets for the Blazers Pistons game. I can probably get them for $1 when they come to Portland.
Oh yeah, they'll be dirt cheap
because no one's gonna want to watch that. So,
yeah,
that's awesome. All right. Anyway, just thought I would ask. It's
I love
the tournament.
I do love when you look at the when you click on ESPN's page, they have the schedule. You click on it, it lists all the games for the night.
Yeah.
And to the right it says tickets as low as blank.
Yeah.
It's like Washington, Charlotte, 17, Denver, Orlando, 19, Brooklyn, Atlanta, 26, Milwaukee, Boston, 153.
Yeah. Well, because that one was going to be
crazy.
Expensive anyway. You know, I mean that's a big deal, but.
There are only 2 games that are above $100, and that is the Milwaukee-Boston game and the Dallas-Lakers game. Everything else is lower. Even Golden State Phoenix is 80. But yeah, that Blazer game that you're talking about, it's $11.
$11. That's a good
quick
that's a good
$11
deal.
bucks.
I think for about 40, I could probably sit courtside. So, I mean,
they have to pay you to sit courtside.
Somewhere in there. It's got to be in that ballpark. I don't know. Let's talk about the NFL Week 11. Which just happened. Thursday night's game, Ravens 34, Bengals 20. And this was Joe Burrow exiting in the second quarter with a wrist injury. Mm-hmm. How severe is the wrist injury is the question, right?
He's out for the season.
So he's out for the season.
Yeah.
So, well, what I'm getting at is it seems like Joe Burrow just recovered from a leg injury.
Right.
And now he has a wrist injury. How long does Joe Burrow have as an NFL quarterback if he's going to have a major season-ending injury every season?
I'd say every couple of years. Definitely not long.
Definitely not long.
Definitely will not stick around for too long not being able to play.
Right. I see that being a problem, and especially if a wrist injury on your throwing hand would be a major problem. Right. Yeah. Anyway, Lamar Jackson, 264 yards and a couple touchdowns. Odell Beckham with 4 catches and 116 yards. Odell Beckham is still pretty good, you know?
Yeah, but he's hurt now too.
Yeah, he's hurt now too.
He's got a knee injury now too.
There's that. Yeah, and he's also a recovering injured guy, so who knows?
I do think that if you can get Odell for a good price, the problem with Odell is you have to deal with Odell. You have to deal with like his type of coverage, his type of personality, all this stuff like that. You have to deal with it. Although most of his teammates have nothing but good things to say about him.
Right.
The people who don't like him are mostly, people in the media and stuff like that who aren't big fans of it. But if you can get him for, 1.5 a year,
sure,
that is a quality 6 games you can pull out of this, dude.
6 games, yeah, maybe.
You say, Odell, this week we're playing the Steelers. Or the Bears. We're gonna rest you, but next week we got the Lions. Be ready to go.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially if he's to the point in his career where he has stopped caring about stats and started caring, because that's why I think he's there. Is he wants to win,
right?
And but I mean, the dude's got a Super Bowl ring, and he was doing well in that Super Bowl. So I don't know what else he's got to prove. There's a question: is Odell a Hall of Famer?
Ooh, I don't know if his career numbers will be quite what you'd look for. He's got some numbers, but I don't think they're quite as high as a lot of the Hall of Famers. I don't know. That's a good question.
Right.
That's an interesting thing. He has a Super Bowl title, right?
Yeah, he's got
from a team
6,800 receiving yards
from a team he got injured on, right? The Rams.
Yeah.
I don't know. Ravens are now 8-3. They lead the AFC North. The Bengals are 5-5. Now at the bottom of the AFC North, which I thought the Bengals were just coming around, right? They were just getting into that form where they looked like everything was right, and now they got to do it with a backup quarterback. And I'm not sure Jake Browning's the guy to help you out of that situation. But hey,
he 100% is not
the
guy.
Yeah, well, but that's what they got. So anyway, that's the Ravens might be the best team in football. I don't know. I'd like to see them play the play the Eagles. That'd be great. Then we would know.
They're a really good team, but the issue that I have with them to this point is, one, now you've lost if you lose Odell, that kind of sucks, but it's not the end of the world. But you lost Mark Andrews, so your number one receiving threat for the last 3 years is now gone for the rest of the season. And number two, okay, so their notable wins this year. They spanked the Lions without a doubt. That is their best win, 38-6. Wow. But you snuck by the Bengals early, 27-24. I'm not going to count the Texans in week 1 because the Texans didn't figure out that they actually had a quarterback until about week 5.
That's true.
You beat the Bengals without Joe Burrow, mostly.
Yeah.
You spanked the Seahawks, but the Seahawks are up and down all year. None of these wins, other than the Lions win, really shouts at me. And you lost to the Colts and the Steelers and the Browns. But they don't have a hard schedule. They do have upcoming Jaguars, 49ers, and Dolphins in a row.
Yeah.
I think you're going to learn more about that team in that stretch.
Right. The Chargers found another way to lose a close game, 23-20 to the Packers. Justin Herbert was the leading rusher for the Chargers with 73 yards on 8 carries, if that tells you anything. He shouldn't be the leading rusher, especially when you have Austin Eckler or Joshua Kelly, but apparently those two combined for 77 yards. Herbert had 73. Herbert, again, wasn't stellar. He wasn't bad by any stretch, right? Yeah. I mean, 21 of 36, 260. He's got a couple touchdowns in there. Their defense is terrible. Their defense can't stop anybody.
So bad.
This is only 23 points, but it's the Packers. And it's a game that you were there in the fourth quarter, and, you let them score with 2:33. This is what happens every week.
Yeah.
You scored with 5:24 to go in the fourth, and then you let them score immediately.
Let them march right down the field.
They can't hold a lead. The fourth quarter defense is terrible. And then we're going to talk about Brandon Staley. Well, we can talk about him right now, I guess. But, Brandon Staley has said that, he's going to continue to call the defensive plays and took offense, apparently, to someone suggesting otherwise, the media guys. But I you know what? How can you take offense to something when it clearly looks like if you're the guy calling the defensive plays, they're not great. So I haven't figured that out yet. And I lost him. Hopefully it's temporary. He's back.
Who, me?
Yeah, you're back. You went out.
No, I never went anywhere.
Well, it cut out. I couldn't hear anything.
Oh,
so.
Weird. Working out, new places, new Wi-Fi's, new things like that.
For sure.
So, the Chargers they have a defensive issue.
Yeah.
Just in losses, Justin Herbert is a top 5 quarterback still. Yeah. And you're still losing games. Yeah. You got to shore up that defense. Maybe it's time to blow up the personnel that's on there. Maybe it's just a coaching thing. I don't know, but they've had a bad defense for a long time, going back even into Phillip Rivers days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because Phillip Rivers would score 25 points a game and they'd still lose 28-25.
Yeah. And then, of course, it doesn't help when Joey Bosa goes out.
That does not hurt anything, although I feel like I haven't been hearing his name a lot this year, so maybe it's not the end of the world.
No, probably not, but he's hurt every year too. This is a whole nother thing. You know what I mean? Joey Bosa is always hurt. So this team can't stay healthy, and that's part of the problem because it's one thing or another. It's Eckler, it's Allen, it's it's who knows, and it's always somebody. So I don't know what they need, but if it was me, I'd be finding a new head coach because this has been going on for this is his third year.
Staley's?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's his third year.
I think it's his year 3. And they lost a lot of one-score games last year. Right. So I don't know. Losing one-score games is painful. It's a painful way to live. But anyway, Jordan Love, 27 of 40, 322 yards, a couple touchdowns. So, I mean, he's serviceable at quarterback. He's not going to
He's also new to the role.
Correct. He's not going to win you any gigantic, he's not going to win you a trophy right now, but he's serviceable. He's learning. He's got to grow into it quite a bit. And especially with a team that had a bunch of turnover over the last couple of years. So,
right.
Yeah, he's dealing with a lot of new players. But anyway, so I don't know. I don't even know what they need to do. The Chargers, they're in last place in the division. I know. And it's atrocious to watch because when you watch them, they're better than how they're playing. The parts and pieces are way better than what is happening on the field. And if the Steelers are going to fire an offensive coordinator in the middle. You'd have to fire the defensive coordinator. That's Brandon Staley, isn't it?
Well, he says I'm the one calling the
Then
plays
yeah, he's
on
the
defense.
he's the guy. So you'd have to
I,
fire him.
I think their next step is for GMs to get involved and say, look, man, you're no longer going to call the plays.
They'd have
if
to.
you don't like that, you can leave.
Yeah, here's the
But
door.
we need you to stop
It's been ugly.
because it ain't helping us.
No, it's been terrible. Yeah. Anyway, I'm tired of watching those games. Just FYI. Cleveland, 13-10 over the Steelers. Cleveland's now 7-3. That was a classic AFC North game between the Steelers and the Browns. And this is why, speaking of people getting fired, this is why offensive coordinators get fired, because 10 points ain't going to cut it, right? I mean, you don't win very many games unless you're Iowa with 10 points.
Right.
So, DTR did it for the Browns, right? Rallied them to a win, the last second win.
Yeah, he did well enough. I will say though, they threw him out there, and first of all, whatever the hell is going on with their quarterback situation is just weird. He threw the ball 43 times.
Yeah.
How are you having your rookie QB come in mid-season and in his first game you're like, let's sling it?
Well, they couldn't.
That just feels really bold.
Well, they couldn't run to save their behind. Let's just say that.
It's true.
96 yards total, 3 yards a carry is not going to win you many trophies. But they just, I don't know. I guess he had to throw, and if they were winning. They were up 10-7. It's not like he had to, he could have just kept trying to run the clock. But I guess they decided that passing was the way to win, and I don't know. But hey, they won. That's all that matters.
Yeah,
right.
Just strange. Normally rookies don't get
43 pass attempts.
43 pass attempts in their first start.
That is a lot.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. Anyway, so Steelers are now 6-4. Browns are 7-3. We'll see if the new offensive coordinator. I don't know. Did they say? I didn't hear if they hired another guy. Did they just promote what? And I can't think of his name. Promote someone offensive coordinator. That's kind of what I'm feeling. I can't remember who they got.
I don't know who they're using.
Yeah, because
instead it said, running backs coach Eddie Faulkner is expected to take the team's offensive coordinator position.
There you go. So you got a running backs coach now. So maybe they'll just run the ball more. I don't know. But Kenny Pickett is, I don't know, 15 of 28, 106 yards.
Yeah, he's not good.
No, I mean, it's not. But I don't blame it all on him. I don't think he's great. You can't possibly blame everything on him either. But yeah, it's a terrible situation in Pittsburgh too. But for a 6-4 team, a team that is in the playoff hunt.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're doing that with defense, but that's
with defense exactly.
We got to
a good defense keeps you in play.
In play. All right, a few more games we're going to talk about. The Dolphins 20-13 over the Raiders to go to 7-3. Jalen Ramsey intercepts the ball late to seal the game, basically. Dolphins turned the ball over 3 times, but they still won because the Raiders aren't very good. But the Raiders are ahead of the Chargers. So Dolphins 7-3. I know, right? Tyreek Hill just continues to tear crap up. 10 catches, 146 yards, and a touchdown. Anyway, you just need somebody with burner speed to go cover him, right?
It's true. Or you need
find.
to. There's 2 schools of thought on how to stop speed. One is to match it with speed.
Yeah.
The other one is to apply pressure. Friction is the enemy of speed. So
yeah.
So if you have somebody big and strong, put an outside linebacker out there, and because you get those first 5 yards to lock in, drive him straight to the ground.
If they can get a hold of him, yeah.
But you can't hold him for too long,
right.
Otherwise you get called for holding. It literally has to be like a pop, slam down, and then hands off.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, good luck with either of those strategies. That's the tricky part. He's either too fast to get your hands on if you're not a fast guy, and if you're a fast guy, you have to be able to know where he's going, or at least react to it faster than him, which is hard to do. Fastest man in football, probably. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Tyreek Hill's, but he does get open and he does catch a lot of passes, and the Dolphins are winning. What more do you want in our life? Here's the question for you. After a 21-16 win over the Cardinals, the Texans are 6-4. Is C.J. Stroud a legitimate MVP candidate? He did throw 3 interceptions in this game. Just
Yeah, he's solid.
Yeah.
I honestly, I kind of wish I kind of wish rookies couldn't be eligible for the MVP.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
just that we don't have to have that conversation. They have their own MVP.
They have Rookie of the Year. Yeah.
They have a Rookie of the Year type thing. So
Right.
an offensive and defensive Rookie of the Year. So I kind of let that be that. But I mean, he's definitely making a case, but I don't know. You're not going to sit here and convince me time over that he's beating really good teams, right?
Right.
He lost to the Ravens, the Colts, and the Panthers and the Falcons. He beat the Bengals. That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. His other most notable win was the Jaguars in week 3.
Yeah.
Jaguars are a team that I think is a 50-50 team. The Bengals have been a 50-50 team all year. But their schedule does not get any harder. They don't play anybody more difficult. So they're in a good position. They can take out the Jaguars this week. They've got Broncos, Jets, Titans.
Yeah.
You could win all 3 of those.
Yeah.
I hope they don't win one of them, but you can win all 3 of those. And then you got the Browns. That's tough. But then you got the Titans and Colts again. They could easily, they could easily go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-2.
Yeah.
Over the rest of the season, and you got 11 wins there. Like, I don't know. It's kind of wild. They're a wild team this year, that's for sure.
Tank Dell continues to have a good season. He's the favorite target. 8 catches, 149 yards and a touchdown. He's got 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games. So they apparently have a connection, those 2 guys now. So
yeah, it's working for him.
Yeah, he's doing well. The Niners, when they're healthy, are the best team in football. I feel like that's a true statement.
Yes.
They beat the Buccaneers 27-14 in San Francisco. They're 7-3 now. The Buccaneers now 4-6. Honestly, the Buccaneers are better than I thought they would be with Baker Mayfield.
I would agree.
Yeah, but Brock Purdy, 333 yards and 3 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey had 78 yards rushing. They do what they do. There's so many weapons. They're hard to stop on offense when they're all healthy and firing well. And when the defense is there playing solid, doesn't have to play great, but when they're playing solid defense and everyone's there, they create turnovers. They make a lot, they make the other teams make mistakes. That's a good football team. I don't know that they're capable of staying healthy and being healthy through the Super Bowl because we still got seven games. That's a long time. So I don't know. Your take on the Niners? If you had to put if the Niners play the Eagles today for the NFC Championship, who's the better team?
Everyone's healthy. It's the Niners.
Okay.
The Eagles have been eking out games all season. That's kind of their identity.
Yeah.
Right. But when the Niners are healthy, there's not a team that's been able to really come that close to stopping them.
All right. Yeah. I think the Niners are the best team in football as a complete unit.
Yeah.
But again, they all have to be healthy because it's been a pain in the behind otherwise. How about your Denver Broncos? 21-20 win over the Vikings. Vikings now 6-5. Broncos are 5-5. They're in second place in the division because the Las Vegas is 5-6 and the Chargers are 4-6. So second place in the division. Yeah, it's a distant second at the moment behind the Kansas City, but we'll talk about them in just a minute. They're only 2 games behind.
Yeah,
right? They're only 2 games back. Russell Wilson with 259 and a touchdown in this one. The Vikings had won 5 games in a row. Cortland Sutton with that amazing catch.
That's 2 weeks in a row now where Russ has put a pass up that is either Cortland gets it or no one gets it.
Yeah, and when it went up, I immediately said, "Ooh."
It looked like it was going to be super pickable.
Either that or it was just overthrown everybody. I couldn't tell. It was sailing like a weird and then there he was. All of a sudden he's got.
But then as you're watching it drop, you're realizing those guys aren't as close
Yep.
to that ball as they seem.
Yeah, it was a much better throw than at first thought. So
I thought the same thing. He hucked up there and went, "Oh crap!"
Yeah.
And then as soon as Cortland caught it, I went, "Whoa!"
That was the first thing out of my mouth was, "Ooh, this is not okay."
Don't love that.
Yeah, but they won. I mean, that's all that matters, right? So they just keep winning. Defenses will win you a lot of games. So
a lot of games.
A lot of games. They got a tough schedule still coming up. So we'll see what happens. But they're in the thick of the playoff hunt right now as it stands. So
Which is crazy to even say.
anybody at 500 right now is in a good spot. You got 7 games left. You go 4-3. You're at 9-8. Somebody's going to make the playoffs at 9-8. Every year they do. So you don't have to be great, but if you can go 5-2,
right?
Yeah, now you're 10-7. Now you might even be able to host a game. So
now some things are doable.
It's doable, right? So all right. Yeah, Matt Canada got fired. I mean, probably rightfully so. Brandon Staley should probably be fired. That's not happening anytime soon, but it should. Eagles beat the Chiefs on Monday night, 21-17. The Eagles just on it. The Eagles did not look like the better team,
right?
And then they were. The second half, the Chiefs don't score. I mean, it's 17-7 Chiefs at the half, and then it was 14-0 Eagles in the second half. And I don't understand how Kansas City just stopped, whether that was Philly's defense or what. But the Chiefs looked like they were all over. 5 sacks in the first half, right? I think in the first quarter. But they didn't. I don't know. I don't know what to think of Kansas City. Kansas City is missing something. We don't know what it is, but they're missing something. And the Eagles
well, we had this conversation the other day. I don't think they're missing anything. I think they're just making mistakes.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe they're just missing gelling. They're not gelling together. You know what I mean? They're not all coming, like we said, we're not all coming together at the same time.
Possibly. But
it
just doesn't make any sense because they have the same team. It's the same team that they won games with, that they're now not winning games with.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that doesn't make any sense about it, is that you're talking about a team that doesn't have that crazy turnover, nothing like that, and yet all of a sudden they're losing.
Well,
and you can look at them all and you can say, oh, well, there was a drop for a touchdown. That definitely cost you. There was this. That definitely cost you. It's a lot easier to look at their games and think that.
The Chiefs have 3 games this season where they scored more than 23 points. Right? One of them was the Bears,
right,
which is amazing, right? Because everybody's going to score 40 on the Bears, or should. And then one of them's the Chargers. We know don't have a defense.
Okay.
But the rest of those games, right? They scored 20 against the Lions and a loss, 17, 23, 27, 19, right? 9 against the Broncos, 21 against the Dolphins, 17 against the Eagles. Their offense is not clicking. There's something missing, and it's just not happening. Whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but they're not scoring points like they have in the past. I'm not 100% certain because I haven't looked up the stats, but if you look up the stats from last year, I guarantee they're probably averaging more points per game last year at this point than they are now. Just things were better for whatever reason. I don't know what's missing, and it could be offensive line. It could be who knows what. I see Mahomes scrambling around a lot, but that's just kind of his MO, the scramble. He makes plays on the run. So
I don't see that much missing. I just see drops. I see
drops.
mental errors.
Yeah.
I see things like that because their defense is still playing great.
Yeah.
Against everyone. So the defensive side isn't a question. Patrick Mahomes he's not putting up, classic 70 fantasy point games, right, but he's still having decent games. And he would have 2 more touchdowns a game if Travis Kelce doesn't fumble or Marquez Valdez-Scantling catches it.
Yeah.
I just see lapses. I don't look at that team and go, they need to improve this. They need to replace this. There's nothing like that. Didn't help that Mecole Hardman was sidelined all night because, in my opinion, he's their second best receiver. Like, you can say what you want about Rice, but I think Mecole Hardman is fantastic. So
if you're a Chiefs fan, the good news is this: at 8-3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's on your schedule? Raiders, Packers, Bills, okay, but it's at home. Patriots, Raiders, and a Bengals team without Joe Burrow, and then the Chargers.
Yeah,
I see
all very winnable.
I see the Bills game being a struggle, maybe, but the rest of it,
all very winnable.
All very winnable. I think they're going to be favored in every single game, and so you're looking at a team that could be 14-3. Not that will matter. They've already lost to Philly once. Philly knows how to beat them. Clearly, that's what the best part is from the Super Bowl, and then this game. Both those games were really good, right? And
right.
I think that if you got a rematch, it would be another really good football game. So having teams with some familiarity, you know what the other team likes to do. That always makes for more interesting football games because teams are trying to do stuff that the other team hasn't seen before or they don't expect, and that's what makes it interesting. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it the rest of the season for the, I don't know. I still think the Chiefs are probably going to win the AFC. I just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I could see
schedule's
that. You could
schedule's
convince me
pretty
of that
easy.
pretty easy.
Yeah, the Jaguars are there
Yeah.
at 7-3, okay, but I don't think they're
No.
that. The
They're not
Browns,
actually there.
the
They're just around.
Ravens could still, but I think they're going to lose a game or two here and there. I think the schedule sets up nicely, and if I had to bet, I would say Philadelphia's going to win the NFC. Maybe not. They're going to be at least the number one seed. Them and the Niners are going to be right there. And if you had a team outside of those three, and you had to pick one right now, who would it be?
Outside of
the
Niners, the Baltimore, and what's it called? And the
Kansas City.
Chiefs.
Philadelphia, Kansas City,
Oh,
the Niners, and Baltimore. Outside of those four teams, if you had to pick one team to put
there's
money on.
no one that sticks out in any sort of dramatic way. Buffalo, if they figure it out. The Lions, if they figure the rest of it out, because I think they have the majority of it figured out. I'm gonna go with Buffalo and the Lions. There's my AFC and NFC teams.
Okay, there you go. I like that.
But I still don't like either one of them. There are four teams that are head and shoulders above everyone else.
How do you feel about the Cowboys?
I feel like they're
7-3.
still faking.
All right. Okay.
I feel like their schedule has set up well to allow them to get wins to this point. They beat the Giants, they beat the Jets, they beat the Patriots, they beat the Chargers, they beat the Rams, they beat the Giants again, they beat the Panthers. Those are their wins. They have played three teams with a winning record at the time they played them. One was a 500 record or better. One was the Chargers, who they beat. The other two were the 49ers and the Eagles. And they have lost to both of them.
Yeah, that's true. Let's talk about one more NFL thing. One more NFL note. Colts owner Jim Irsay. Did you hear what he said about why he was arrested for operating a vehicle while intoxicated in 2014?
No.
Oh, he said it was a result of police prejudice against him for being a rich white billionaire.
Possible.
Okay.
Unlikely, but you don't need to. But I mean, are we shocked that Jim Irsay has a hot take?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how that you think that the Indianapolis police are out there just looking for people with rich cars and pulling them over? Is that what you're trying to say? What if he wouldn't know what color you were unless they saw you. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
right.
I'm sure he inferred. So, like, the police targeting high-end vehicles, that exists. That's been a thing for a long time. So that's not a surprise. You see two cars speeding down the road, you know who will pay the ticket, you know who won't pay a ticket. You know, the Mercedes will, the beat-up Honda might not, right? So you pull that car over, you pull the nicer car over because you feel more confident that they'll just pay it and walk away.
Right.
No trouble involved. But if the cop comes up and maybe the cop is non-white, and then Jim Irsay takes it to the next level, from there and goes, "Well, this must be this."
What he said was, "I'm prejudiced against because I'm a rich white billionaire. If I'm just the average guy down the block, they're not pulling me in. Of course not." Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think if your vehicle's being operated erratically, then you know what I mean. Or if you did something, you broke the law, if you were speeding and you get pulled over, that's how they catch most people anyway. I mean, it could be a license plate light. That's all it's got to take, right? And they pull you over and then they find out that you're intoxicated, and that's the end of that. And then he was asked why he pleaded guilty, and you said, "Oh, just to get it over with." That's what he said.
I mean, what does it matter to him? He's rich, yeah.
If you didn't do anything wrong and you've got all that money, you could fight it in court, right? You absolutely could. Well,
but is it cheaper just to pay for it and have it go away because you own your company, you own all this stuff?
Sure.
It's not really hurting you.
No, I get it. But I mean, if I had unlimited resources, if I was a rich white billionaire, and a policeman pulled me over because he's prejudiced against me, I would absolutely go to court and fight that. If that's the reason, and I didn't do anything wrong, I would absolutely not plead guilty. Why would you? Because money's no object. I could spend $1 billion in court and it won't matter. That's what I'm getting at.
Well, it does matter to some extent, right?
I guess. So anyway, and then of course
I don't know. That's a tough one because both arguments have merit. Yours is sitting from a position of morality. Why would I ever agree to this?
Right.
If I'm innocent. His is from a position of who the hell cares?
Right.
Who cares if people think I drove drunk? Because I paid. It's done. It's over with. Who cares? Like it is that small on his scale. So it's impossible for me to comprehend, I guess, how that feeling. Because I would probably take the other route, which is if I'm not drunk driving, why would I ever say that I was or agree to being told that I was? So, but I can try and step back and see that perspective of who cares. It's kind of weird though.
Yeah. Yeah. If you read the whole story though, you're talking about failing sobriety tests. He had trouble reciting the alphabet. He couldn't walk the line because he says he just had hip surgery, right? And he'd been in the car for 45 minutes, and I get it. But they also found, painkillers in the car, oxycodone, hydrocodone, as well as alprazolam. And then, I'm not so worried about the $29,000 in cash because he's a rich white billionaire. He probably has a lot of cash in his pocket. But that was also in the car. And if it was anyone else, that would have raised a lot more suspicion. Right?
Yeah, but the fact that if he's true about having hip surgery, which there's a medical record of that, right?
Sure.
If he's just had hip surgery, it's not unfathomable that he would have some of these drugs in his system, painkillers in his system.
Right.
Because the toxicology report that they released indicated the presence of these things, but it didn't indicate the volume being substantial enough. Meaning, if you took him in the morning and was caught driving at night, it's still going to show up as being in there.
Sure.
But it might not be impacting you in that way, or maybe it's just like the after effects of them and things like that. I don't know. I've read all about like the little police report and things like that. It's very interesting because what he ultimately ended up pleading to was driving while impaired. Like he was charged with that and possession of a controlled substance, but those charges were dropped because he was legally allowed to possess those controlled substances.
Right.
Which to me is it's a crazy thing that like, you can look at a prescription bottle and see somebody's name on it and be like, we're still going to charge you with it until you prove that they're yours. It's like, okay. But yeah, so his situation is really interesting. But I don't know if I'd ever say this though. Even if you think that you're being like, you could have said I'm being prejudiced because I drove a nice car. Okay, I don't think too many people would have a problem with that. Most people know that kind of targeting does happen, so whatever. But the fact that you then said I'm being targeted because I'm a rich white billionaire,
right?
Ooh, buddy.
Yeah, and then he said, of course, he's not. He doesn't care what it sounds like, right? So yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting. He's got some issues. He also said at some point in time, somewhere in his life, he overdosed on something. He almost died.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's had addiction problems. Right.
Yeah.
So for his hip, after he's had addiction problems, for his hip pain, he's got 2 different painkillers, and he takes anxiety medication too. This is a guy who had addiction problems, or maybe still does. We don't even know. But I'm thinking at this point, if you had those things in your system, why didn't you just hire somebody to drive you somewhere? Why would you not have a driver? I mean, then you don't have to worry about it. You can just drink it up in the back. You can live it up in the back seat. No one cares. Right?
See, I think about that all the time. I really like driving cars.
I do too.
So I would love to drive, but also if I had the money to have a driver at my disposal, there would be I'd use it so much because I'd be like, oh, I'm going to go downtown to watch a hockey game.
Yep.
Driver, take me there.
And because they can just drop you off. You don't have to. There's no parking or issues.
You don't have to do anything.
And
none of it's your concern.
I had 1 beer too many. No big deal. They're going to come pick me up. Right. So
yeah, I just don't. If I'm Jim Irsay, but Jim Irsay has not exactly been the beacon of intelligent commenting.
It's an interesting situation. It's just all I'm saying.
But now I guess he's starting to sue First Take over it.
Oh yeah,
that's where all this kind of came from.
Because
First Take was running their mouths, and I mean, let's also be real: is Stephen A. Smith the beacon of appropriate commenting?
No, not at all. Stephen A. Smith.
So
is not.
You got 2 of the dumbest commentators on earth screaming at each other.
Yeah, that's always interesting to listen to. That's one of my favorite shows.
I would love to watch a show that's Stephen A. Smith versus Jim Irsay, but it's like a 1-hour special. I don't want to see the show every day.
Let's go to the trivia questions, NFL related, because before we get there, just so everyone knows, tomorrow on Thanksgiving Day, Packers Lions, Commanders Cowboys, and the night game is the Niners Seahawks on NBC. So you got one on Fox, one on CBS, one on NBC, and then don't forget, Black Friday is the first ever Black Friday game, Dolphins Jets in New York, and that's on Prime Video. That's at noon, which is kind of a weird time, but that's okay. There are a bunch of college games going on that day. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But trivia question is about Thanksgiving Day in the NFL. Huh?
Yeah.
So it's a 4-parter. Well, it's not really 4 parts. 2 separate questions, but it's got 4 answers. Huh? All right. So you ready? Here's the question. Save and Stone trivia question is this. Are you ready?
Right.
Who holds the records? And I say records because there's 3 of them for career touchdown passes, career rushing touchdowns, and career receiving touchdowns on Thanksgiving Day in the NFL.
On Thanksgiving Day.
Yep. So there's already a hint in there in that the teams that play on Thanksgiving Day every year. So the question is, which player has thrown the most touchdown passes on Thanksgiving Day, ran for the most touchdowns, and caught the most touchdown passes? Also, the bonus question, one more answer, who holds the record for touchdowns scored on Thanksgiving Day? So there you go. Right?
Okay.
4 different answers.
So, do you want me to answer it now, or do you want me to hold it?
What do you want to do?
I'll answer it now.
Okay, go.
Touchdown passes.
Touchdown passes.
I'm gonna go with Tony Romo.
Tony Romo is tied with another guy.
With another guy.
Uh-huh.
Clearly not a cowboy. Or actually, it could be a cowboy. Troy Aikman?
No, it's not Troy.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was my guess for the passes one. The rushing ones.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna go with. Crap, I'm torn between Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith.
Okay.
I'm thinking Lions and Cowboys. They always play each other.
Yeah.
Or they always play on the day. They very rarely play each other. But
right.
And then receiving, I'm gonna go all Cowboys. And receiving yards, I'm gonna go Terrell Owens.
Okay, so you're gonna go with Emmitt Smith over
Emmitt
Barry
Smith
Sanders?
over Barry Sanders.
Okay, so Matt Stafford is the other one. Matt Stafford and Tony Romo. Your rushing touchdowns is Emmitt Smith.
Yes.
Tony Dorsett was second.
Hey, nice.
And then Barry Sanders. And then
Barry Sanders, okay.
And then the number 1 receiving is Calvin Johnson.
Oh, wait, where's T.O. on that list?
Yep. I didn't see the rest of that list, but Calvin Johnson is by a long stretch.
That's fair.
Yeah. And then
I was in the right vein thinking Cowboys and Lions.
And then your record for touchdowns scored by one person on Thanksgiving Day is the second question.
Record touchdown scored by one person on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go crazy with it. Let's say Robert Griffin III.
Oh, nice. That's an excellent guess. It's actually Ernie Nevers. Ernie Nevers played for the Chicago Cardinals. And in 1924 on Thanksgiving.
So before the Pilgrims landed?
Yeah. He was they were eating the first Thanksgiving when he scored 6 touchdowns. But he scored 6 touchdowns. And he kicked 4 extra points. He scored 40 points in the game.
Right.
Which is an NFL record. Almost tied by Alvin Kamara, who scored 6 rushing touchdowns a few years back. He's second in terms of points scored in a game in NFL history. So there you go. There's your trivia question. All right, Thanksgiving Day. What are you going to do?
Thanksgiving. Nice.
We can only hope that there'll be 6 touchdowns by somebody on Thanksgiving Day. That would be great. I would love to see a wide open. And why am I at the wrong place here? That's all right. Let's talk about the Ducks. Let's talk about college football because that's what we're doing here. Week 12 just completed. The number 6 Oregon Ducks blew out Arizona State. There's no better way to put it. It was 49-13. It's 42-0 at halftime. Bo Nix with 404 yards passing and 6 passing touchdowns, tying an Oregon record, but he did it in one half. Yeah, that's just amazing. They were clicking. It was all the cylinders. Troy Franklin, 8 catches, 128 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Troy Franklin setting a record, and Camden Lewis setting a record, and they looked so good in that first half. It was dominating. I've seen Arizona State play a couple of different times this year, and they played pretty hard against some of these teams. Washington, UCLA, they beat UCLA last week, but 0 points in the first half, and not even really close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a dominating win for Oregon, and it looked great, but let's just call it what it is. It was just one win over a team you should have beat. And but, however, it was Oregon, and I don't remember the number, but it was Oregon's first win in Arizona in like 15 years.
What?
Yeah, it was Oregon's first win in the state of Arizona in like 15 years.
No way.
Yeah, no, I said the same thing. Then I went back. I was like, okay, well they don't play Arizona and Arizona State both each year, and they don't when they do, they don't always play them on the road, right? So now you have to start going back, and then also you have in that thrown in that time frame, you have a national championship game played in Arizona that they lost, and I mean I was like, what? That can't be true. And apparently. It was, I don't know. It might not have been 15, but it was a large number. I just remember the number. I was like, holy crap, that is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous amount of time because I was trying to remember them winning in Arizona. Because 3 years ago, they played at Arizona State and lost.
Right. Mario Cristobal's last year.
Yeah.
And last year we didn't go to Arizona.
Right. And so there's a lot. There's just like, how long has it been? It's been that long. It's crazy. Anyway. But they did. They picked up a win in Arizona, and they looked good doing it.
This is just blowing my mind.
The number, like the thinking about the last time they won in Arizona.
Yeah, because like I'm actually going through season by season right now. 2019, we lost at Arizona State.
Yeah.
Year before, we lost at Arizona.
Yeah.
Like
it's ridiculous, isn't it?
My head can't handle it. It's too much because it's like, oh, we've pretty much had their number. Year before that, with Willie Taggart, we lost at Arizona State.
Yeah.
Wow.
You got to go back. Where do you? This is
incredible.
Where do you have to go back to?
2009. We beat the Wildcats.
You beat Arizona State at Arizona State and Arizona both.
Well, we played Arizona.
Oh, at Arizona. Sorry, yeah, Arizona.
Yeah,
right.
But that was that 2 overtime Jeremiah Masoli win.
So 2010 they won at Arizona State.
Okay, 2010. So then 2011.
2011 probably starts this run.
We were 12-2.
Nope, they beat Arizona.
No, yeah, beat Arizona at Arizona. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So 2012. Maybe it's only been 10 years. Versus Arizona at Arizona State. No, see, it's only been 2012. So 2013.
2013.
They lost at Arizona.
At Arizona, this is probably when it starts.
That's the start.
So,
so
10 years, but
11 seasons. It was the first one in 11.
Still,
so. I know,
right? Change that.
Isn't that stupid? Isn't that dumb?
I didn't know we'd done that bad, that poorly in Arizona.
Right.
We've been wrong before.
Yeah. Arizona. The state of Arizona has not been nice to Oregon football. Anyway, did it change your impression of the football team, or did you just know they were this good already?
I knew they were this good. I still expect them to be like I have the problem you have where I expect Oregon to come out slow because they've done it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Their first and second drives always make you want to slam your head against a wall for so long. That's not happening this season nearly as much. There was a couple games early, I think, where it kind of happened. But the last 5 games, no problems. They're coming right out and they just start marching. And when they come out and march down the field like that, I don't have any concerns. Because if they can do it once, I'm pretty confident they'll do it again. I think that Cal game was the only game where we marched right down, kick a field goal, and then it kind of stalled out from there or something. But or no, it was the Stanford game. It was the Stanford game. That one had a slow kind of kick up to it. But no, it didn't change my perspective on the team. They're a very good team. They're probably the most complete team in football, led by one of the more confident quarterbacks I've ever seen play. I think 2020. I would take 2023 Bo Nix over any year of Marcus Mariota.
Yeah,
just everything else is kind of notwithstanding because they have different receivers and stuff. But man,
I was gonna say
so confident.
I was gonna say, would it have been interesting to see? I mean, if you could swap quarterbacks on a
Bo
team,
with Josh Huff,
with those receivers,
guys,
and with the running game also.
Sure, Royce Freeman and Bo Nix and Josh Huff in 2014, whatever that was, would have been crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. I don't know.
Yeah,
they're doing well. let's just
We're doing very well, yeah.
let's just we got a civil war to go through and all that kind of stuff, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. If I can get back to where I was going, which are my scores for the college football. I got to get the stats pulled back up. Hold on just a second. Week 12. All right. So in the Pac-12, the rest of the Washington State. Oh gosh, where's my thing? See, I had the stuff all pulled up, and then the world just ended on me, and now it doesn't do what I wanted to. Washington State with a blowout win. Hang on. Over Colorado. That was on Friday.
Right.
56-14. Washington State just dominated that game. I mean, it was
just ran them out of the house.
It was ugly. I mean, it was just an ugly football game. For a team, Colorado, that was already losing a bunch of games. This is a 500 Washington State team that has only won 2 Pac-12 games, including this one. And they just bombed them. I mean, it was not even
smoked you.
I think you watched Colorado give up. And it was
for sure.
It was 14-7. It was 14-0 Washington State. Colorado scored to make it 14-7, and then on an ensuing kickoff they ran it back for a touchdown. And I think that did them in. It was just at that point it was like nope. And then it was 42-7 at the half, and yeah, I think they just kind of gave up. Yeah, that was an interesting football game to watch.
Yeah, it was fun to watch because I like watching teams that I know are overhyped lose.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Like it's one of the craziest things, but yeah, it was a fun game to watch in that regard. But it was a smoking. And then once Shadur got hurt and Travis Hunter got hurt, and they stopped playing those guys at one point. I think Travis Hunter was much later, but once they stopped playing Shadur, they ran 2 different quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Kind of throughout the rest of that game, and both of them were terrible.
Terrible. Yep.
And the thing to remember that people need to tell themselves is all 3 of those were transfers. All 3 of those quarterbacks. These are the guys Dion brought in.
Yep.
All 3 of them.
They're his guys.
You can say what you want about the offensive line, but those backup quarterbacks didn't get sacked as much as Shadur does.
Yeah, it's true.
Like the percentage of throws to sacks was substantially lower, and yeah, it's one game of sampling, but
right.
I don't know. It was just an interesting game to watch for sure, and it was a little fun to watch them struggle a little bit. So never too mad.
Game of the week in the Pac-12: Washington, number 5 at the time, beats Oregon State, number 11 Oregon State, 22-20 in Corvallis. This was a game that I watched, feeling like Oregon State at any minute was going to score and take the lead. You know what I mean?
But they just kept not.
They just kept not being able to do whatever it was, and the turnovers killed them. But in a game where Penix throws for 160 yards, 162, right. Sorry, he was under 500, 13-28, 162 yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay, he ran the ball 3 times for 22 yards. He did run in for another score. It's like
right.
He was not impressive. The team was not impressive. Their big play man, what's his name? Odunze, 7 catches, 106 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Yeah. Wouldn't you like triple team him? Only 4 players caught passes for Washington. 4.
Yeah. Well, it started raining so hard, they just started leaning on the run game early. And when they realized that wasn't going to cut it,
right.
Then they started going back to the air. So to a slight bit of defense, they kind of lost like a half of true throwing the football.
Yeah.
Before they decide, okay, we got to just power through this weather and make it happen. And they barely pulled it out. But you're right. I would say, as a general rule, I did not walk away from that going, man, that Michael Penix is a Heisman Trophy candidate. I walked away from that going, man, that Odunze is pretty good. Michael's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, he managed to get open. I don't understand how, when you've got one guy that's doing all the damage, how you just find a way to, I don't know. I would have had 2 guys on him all the time, I guess. I don't know. But because in the game, nothing else was beating you. Nobody else was doing anything. He had 7 catches. The other 3 guys who caught passes for Washington had 6 catches combined.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they weren't getting killed by the pass except to that one guy. But they still, even at the end of the game, they couldn't find a way to shut it down. Even in the third quarter I guess technically it was late second quarter when they had the big play. So they did shut it down in the second half.
Right.
But they couldn't find a way to just get the score that they needed, the touchdown that they needed. They needed one more touchdown, and they just couldn't quite get it. I don't know.
It just seemed off, yeah. And DJU's not. He's serviceable, but he's not great. He's lacking a little something. So that kind of held him back at various points.
Damian Martinez still looks pretty good though. 26
hell
carries,
yeah, he does. He is so
yards.
good.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Oregon has to shut that down and make DJ beat them through the air, which they won't be able to do. But
yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
But at least the plus side for Oregon is that we're doing pretty well against the run this year.
Yeah, Oregon's run defense is way better than Washington's. So.
Yeah, so you can feel pretty good that all right, well, even if we do give up some yardage, we should be okay.
Right. Yeah, you'd hope so.
Gosh, we hope so.
Gosh, you hope so. Yeah, let's Arizona used a gigantic first half to beat Utah. Now Utah has 4 losses, right?
Yeah.
Arizona's 8-3, 6-2 in the Pac-12. They figured it out. And if Oregon falls to Oregon State, guess who's going to be in the Pac-12 championship game? That's Arizona.
Yeah,
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, they've turned their season around pretty well.
Oh, for sure. This is a dangerous football team. I wouldn't want to play them right now. I don't think they're the best team in the Pac-12 still. They're probably third, right where they are. But they're complete right now. They're playing defense. They're playing offense. Yeah, they were up 28-7 on Utah at the half. It looked like what Oregon did to Utah, really. A lot of the same kind of thing. But I don't know. Arizona's a dangerous team. I wouldn't want to play them. Whoever they're going to get in a bowl game look out. Because they're playing really good. And then, of course, USC, what may be Caleb Williams' final game in the Pac-12?
It will be.
UCLA 38, USC 20. USC finishes at 7-5, 5-4 in the Pac-12. I don't know. They underachieved quite hard this year. So, I don't know. We'll see how Lincoln Riley fares. His seat's got to be a little bit warm, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, and not necessarily justifiably so. Like it seems really soft that it's that warm, but it is. He's got to figure out how to play defense. He's got to figure out how to put together a defense because he came in. He got a full recruiting class in his first year.
Right.
And so this year they're sophomores, and they got worse as sophomores. And you didn't lose that many big pieces to really be able to point to any one thing and go, oh, well, we lost this, our veteran defensive back. We lost this guy. Like, none of that happened. So the excuses aren't there for him. So, his seat's got to be hot. They
lost 3 games last year, 2 to Utah. And then in the bowl game to Tulane, which was an upset. Let's call it that.
An upset.
I mean,
and I think that was a quit thing. I think that team
absolutely
didn't want to play in that game.
Well, Williams threw for 462 yards in the bowl game. He was only 8 yards short of his season high.
And he was hurt too, so I'll give him
But this year,
the smallest amount of a pass because he got hurt in the Utah game.
But this year, they started out the season, I think 6th was the ranking in the AP poll when they started the season, right? And they roll out of the gate and win 6 in a row, right? To include a 43-41 triple overtime win against Arizona, which at the time you were like, it's Arizona. How are you just barely squeaking by Arizona? And now you look back at it and go, that's a pretty good win. You go,
oh, crap, Arizona, nice.
That's a good win. But, yeah. So USC.
I'm very happy Oregon does not have to play Arizona this year.
Yeah, UCLA lost. USC. USC lost to all 4 ranked teams it played this year.
Yeah, and then UCLA, they had a not good year.
Not good year. Anyway, so there's that round out the Pac-12. Other games in general in the NCAA that we should be talking about. In week 12, you had Florida State losing Jordan Travis for the season.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's a big deal, and I don't think that loss cost them their spot in the college football playoff, which we're going to talk about in a second. But I think that Washington's win over Oregon State
didn't help.
The road. No, but Washington's win was a quality win on the road over an 11th ranked team. That's why they're getting the benefit of the doubt. But it isn't. Yeah, it isn't helping them because Florida State won easily. So it wasn't like they struggled to win, but they still won. So it was North Alabama, to be fair. But
it was.
There's that. So you had the same thing out of the Big Ten teams. Michigan 31-24 over Maryland at Maryland. Michigan still looks like one of those teams that is, I know they're the number 3 team in the country, but they still look like they're capable of losing every single football game.
Right.
Ohio State beat Minnesota pretty soundly, 37-3, but most of that was second half. It was 13-0 at the half. It took them a while to warm up. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Oregon does it. but it just, those two teams, when you throw them out there on, and you realize that's the second and third ranked teams in the country, what you realize is that there's this gigantic gap between Georgia at 1 and then Ohio State and Michigan, everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Georgia healthy with Brock Bowers at tight end, I don't know that you're going to beat them.
It certainly seems that way, that
Yeah.
they are that good.
It's what it looks like. Texas with a win on the road at Iowa State, 26-16. Alabama crushed Chattanooga like they do every year. Missouri at number 9 beat Florida 33-31. Florida's better than the 5-6 record that they have, and who knows what's going to happen this weekend when Florida and Florida State play. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Louisville remain ranked with a win at Miami. Miami's still a dangerous team, but they can't beat anybody. It doesn't seem like they're just a touchdown or short of beating some teams.
Right.
I didn't see anything this weekend that made me go wow or ooh, or that was, you know what I mean. Clemson is now 7-4. I didn't see that coming. When they were 4-4. So that was kind of a big deal. But other than that, everybody kind of held serve. So your top ranked teams kind of remained the same, which made, when the college football playoff came out yesterday, the rankings came out yesterday. Here is what it looked like. Georgia 1, Ohio State, Michigan 2-3. Washington moved up to 4. Florida State's down to 5. And then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 all stayed the same. And then you had people move up because Oregon State fell down. So Penn State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, LSU all moved up a notch. Arizona moved up a couple notches. Yeah, so you got 4 Pac-12 teams in the top 25, and they're decent. They're good teams. Oregon State, they're going to lose another one to Oregon, so it's going to be a struggle. I don't know if they'll finish in the top 25. But you also have teams like Liberty. Liberty's now in the top 25. Should they be?
Liberty.
Should we have Liberty in the top 25?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a consolation prize to a team. That's it. Like, outside of the top 7, 8, ones who are in contention for stuff,
right?
The rest of it's just saying, hey, good job today.
Right.
Good job this season. You killed it. And yeah, it's Liberty. They don't get that. They don't get those kudos that often. So maybe we shouldn't be too upset about it.
Right. And so this brings you to another team like Notre Dame, who's at 18, right? Notre Dame's 8-3, and I get it. But they beat the number 10 USC Trojans, right? Except now USC's 7-5. They wouldn't be ranked anywhere, and they beat Duke. Those are their 2 wins over ranked teams. They lost to Ohio State. They lost to Louisville. This is not a resume that looks resoundingly great. When you look at it now, okay, the win over USC at the time seemed like a big deal because you crushed them.
Right.
But that was the beginning of the end for USC, really.
Right.
Yeah, they just kind of fell, to the bottom after that. So seems like Notre Dame that keep getting ranked and keep getting credit for wins that I don't think are great wins. Had an interesting conversation about Alabama, Texas, and Georgia. So, assuming Florida State loses, right? To whoever, and they're out, and the ACC's out of contention, right? The winner of the Michigan-Ohio State game, let's say, wins the Big Ten, and they're in, right, the playoff.
Right.
And then the winner of the Pac-12 championship game, if it's Oregon-Washington, wins and is in, right?
In theory, yeah.
Okay, in theory. And then Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship game. Alabama's going to be in. The SEC champion with 1 loss is not. They're in, right? I mean,
in theory,
I don't think there's any way you keep them out. But legitimately now, you've got an Alabama team that beat Georgia, but a Texas team that beat Alabama. If Texas wins the Big 12, they have a win over the SEC champion.
Right.
How could you keep Texas at? If you had to pick between Texas and Georgia at that point, and a 1-loss Ohio State team, let's say, who gets in the 4th spot?
If you're having to pick between those ones, that's not much of a choice. You're definitely taking Georgia.
Right. Okay. And that was what we were going to say, is you're going to take Georgia, a team that lost to Alabama, over Texas, a team that beat Alabama.
Because you're solely basing, like, if you base it on the one thing, it seems really asinine. But if you're basing it on what's going to be the best game, who's going to provide the best competition, who is the better team, who has the better wins overall,
sure,
it's probably Georgia. Although that being said, I question not Georgia's ability, right? Georgia's going out. They smacked UT Martin. They smacked Ball State.
Yeah.
They 24-14 against South Carolina. Okay. They smacked UAB, struggled against Auburn. They handled Kentucky. They handled Vandy. They handled Florida. But like the best teams that played are all teams that you go, they played 4 ranked teams, right? So Kentucky, Mizzou, Mississippi, and Tennessee. Well, Tennessee's, a bottom part of the 25 team.
Yeah.
Mississippi's up there, but they're like USC in my opinion. Like you just don't quite know what you're going to get from them all the time. Missouri had a pretty good year, so I'll give them a little credit for that, but they came out of nowhere, so there's no precedent for their like you beat a historically good team.
Right.
And then so it's like I look at these wins and I go, yeah, they're good wins, but none of them are like crazy good. Like, and you stomp some people, but I still do think that Georgia is the more complete and better team, and over Texas without a doubt.
Right. I find it funny because when you start comparing resumes, because that's what everyone wants to do, you get credit for a quality win over a team. The example is going to be Ohio State and Michigan. Okay, Ohio State has actually played Notre Dame and beat them, right? They played Penn State and beat them, right? Who has Michigan played? They played Penn State. That was the only ranked team they played. Okay? Right. They got a win over Penn State. If Ohio State beats Michigan, Ohio State's going to have this resume boosting. It doesn't matter. They're going to be undefeated, but they're going to have this resume boosting win over the number 3 team in the country, even though Michigan probably shouldn't have been there. Right? Their resume suggests they're not that good anyway. But they've been there all season long, and since they haven't lost, they've been getting credit for it. And it's those kind of wins where, Texas is going to has this huge credit for beating Alabama. Right? How about the win over Alabama is okay, except how about the loss to Oklahoma? The loss to Oklahoma is worse than the win over Alabama. You know what I mean? It should make you less, but it doesn't seem to affect some teams more like some other teams do. I don't know. Yeah. The resumes are hard to compare because ranked teams, especially at the beginning of the year, don't mean anything. That AP poll is meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless for the first 2 weeks. It means nothing. So,
but this is the problem with a 4-team playoff is that you have to try and assign value to things that don't necessarily need to have value.
Right. Why do they? Here's my question. Why, after the college football playoff comes out, is there an AP poll? Why do we need that? Because
so those people feel heard.
Yeah, nobody uses that poll. It's not used in the rankings. It's not used in anything. So I don't even understand why they even have it at that point.
Because it's tradition, it's history, it's whatever. Sure. The same reason that they put out a billboard charts every year, and all that matters is the Spotify one.
Yeah. It's just odd. I find this whole thing odd. Anyway, it's just a weird way of doing things. But there's no perfect way. You're going to have to expand the playoff to 8 at a minimum.
Well, it's going to 12 next year, so it's not a problem.
I don't know about 12.
I think 12 is perfectly fine.
I think 12 is too many.
I don't think so. Because you're just going to get good matchups, right? Like even your number, like who's number 10 right now?
Louisville.
There you go. So like number 10 versus number 3.
Yeah, they won't do that.
That's a good matchup.
They won't do that though. So I'm not sure.
Oh, so 1 and 2 are going to get buys, right?
They're going to have to. I don't know if they can give 1 and 2 buys. They have to give 1 through 4 buys. And I lost audio again. It's probably me. It's probably my internet. There you are. I know. I think you have to give 1 through 4 buys, don't you? Because if you have 12 teams, you're going to have 4 games and 4 buys, and the winner of the 4 games play the 4 bye teams. Otherwise, you got an odd number of teams. What is going on? Sorry, folks. I got technical difficulties. I'm not sure what happens, but it's been cutting in and out, and I don't know why it's cutting in and out. I don't know if it's our connections, but we're trying to get new stuff figured out. We're in a brand new location, new Wi-Fi. Everything's brand new, but I don't have a phone connection at the moment. I don't have an audio at the moment. Maybe you can hear him, maybe you can't. I don't know. But I can't hear anything. So we're going to move forward. So, and I don't have it up. Of course I don't. Why would I? I was not ready. So here's your look at the NCAA football games for this weekend. I still don't have audio, so I don't know if Skype is doing a thing or what, but Parker's off now, so we'll see. Anyway, here's your NCAA games for this weekend. The Egg Bowl is tomorrow on Thanksgiving Day. Ole Miss at Mississippi State. Still means something to both teams. Mississippi State playing to be bowl eligible. On Friday, November 24th, you're going to have some big games, but the headline game is going to be Oregon State at Oregon, with a berth in the Pac-12 championship game on the line in Autzen Stadium. On Saturday, Ohio State, Michigan is the gigantic game. It's the first game in the morning, too, at 9 a.m. on Fox, if you want to watch it. You also have Alabama at Auburn in the Iron Bowl, Arizona State. These are all traditional rivalry weeks. You have the Apple Cup later in the day at 1 o'clock, Washington State, Washington. I'd watch out if I was Washington. Washington State got their offense rolling against Colorado, so who knows? You have a Florida State team without Jordan Travis taking on Florida. That can be a dangerous game for them, too. And then North Carolina State is later. And the last Pac-12 game, the late game on ESPN, is California at UCLA. So that's all I really have for today. That's all we really wanted to talk about it. See if I got Parker back.
Hey, he's back.
He's back.
He's back. Yeah, I swear it's a perfect world thing. The moment you start talking about something I want to talk about, goodbye. I swear, if you'd be like, Parker, let me get your thoughts on climate control, and then I'd be like, and then that perfect crystal clear, everyone would hear just fine. But the moment you're like, I don't like a 12-team playoff, I'm like, wait a minute.
No, I don't mind a 12-team playoff. What I was saying was, I think you have to have 4 buys. I think 12 might be too many. I think 8's the right number. So that way nobody's sitting around. Nobody's got to buy it. You just play every week. Just keep playing.
I don't like 8 because I can't. You're still going to be you're always going to be making some business decisions on who you let in.
Sure.
But it's much easier to make that decision with teams 12 and 13 than it is to make with teams, 8 and 9.
Can you tell me right now if Ole Miss is better than Oklahoma?
If Ole Miss is better than Oklahoma?
Yeah, it's 12-13 right now.
Can you tell me right now that Alabama is where's the college football? They put Missouri up there.
Missouri. Yes, I can say that.
I can definitely say that. How is Missouri at 9-2 that high up?
Missouri's only losses.
Tulane is 10-1 and they're 23rd.
Yeah, well, they haven't played anybody.
Yeah, I don't care.
But Missouri's losses have been to really good teams, so I think that's part of it. I don't know. I think if you have a 12 team, you have to have the first 4 have to have buys, because then the other 8 play each other. 4 winners play those 4 teams.
Right.
Otherwise, it's going to be a funky way of doing it, where 2 teams get a bye, and you've got teams. I don't know. You've got 12 and 5 would have to play to see who plays 1, and 11 and 10 would have to, or 11 and 6 would have to play to see who plays number 2, and then you'd have the other 2 teams playing each other, or the other teams, 6 teams. No, there's only 6 teams. You can't do it. You can't do it that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't mathematically work, but I don't know how they're going to do it. But I feel like, some years you're going to have trouble making that decision, but I think 8 is probably, if you're 9, 10, or 11, are you really worthy of a shot at the national championship at that point? I mean, I don't know. Because I feel like if we throw in a 12 team and they win at some point in time, or knock out the number 1 team just because they happen to have a good day or a good matchup, whatever, in the first round or whatever, I don't know if that's helpful to the college. How long would this go on if Ohio State's number 1, let's say next year when this happens, right? Ohio State's number 1 and Arizona's number 12, right? And they end up playing and Arizona knocks Ohio State out of the college football playoff. Yeah, how long will they let that happen? Because they go, they shouldn't even have been there. Yeah, probably not, but you put them in, so now you got to take your lumps because you want Ohio State and their fan base in that next game, in the semifinal.
No, that's not true. So what you want is their eyes. You want their eyes. You could give a crap less about who they're rooting for in the moment, but you want their eyes. And what you're realizing now is with telephones and tablets and things like that, you can get people's eyes anywhere. It doesn't have to be Notre Dame with the giant traveling fan base. It doesn't have to be USC or Ohio State or Michigan or Florida. You can put UCF in there. And they will still draw eyes if it's the right matchup. And so I think it won't change anything. If Arizona comes in, spanks Georgia, and in the first round, then it's a Cinderella story. Happens in basketball all the time.
Sure.
So I don't think it would. I don't think that they would be like, we got to scrap this because we're losing too many good teams too early. And also, if you're that good, you'll find out.
You should win.
You'll win anyway, so it won't matter.
I understand that. What I'm saying is that these teams, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, have bigger fan bases than some of these other teams. Louisville, Arizona.
Right.
That's not as big a fan base. You're losing those eyes if they've already lost. Probably you might lose that group of people, which is much bigger than, and I don't know, Kansas State fan base. Right. But
possibly, but how many games do you watch a year that are not Oregon or Oregon State or whatever? Like how many? Because I watch tons.
Way more than I should.
Way more. Tons of them. Yeah. Doesn't matter. I'm going to watch Ohio State, Michigan. I could care less about either team.
But see, and those games are, again, that is going to determine.
But why am I going to watch it?
Who's Oregon going to play?
Exactly. Right. I am going to watch it because I am scoping ahead. That's exactly why an Ohio State fan is gonna tune into, or what's it called? Exactly why UCF fans will tune in droves and things like that to watch them, or why Arizona fans would.
Would you be as interested in the rest of this if Oregon loses to Oregon State? Will you be as interested in the college football playoff if Oregon doesn't make it to the Pac-12 championship? They're out of the college football playoff next week. Would you still have the interest that you have now? No, not the same. You might still watch these games.
It probably drops 20%.
But what I'm getting at is if you're one of these fan bases, that's what's going to happen. Is some of these people are just going to go, "Oh, I'm done. The season's over. I'm not. Why even watch football now?"
Yeah, but those were the people that only tuned in to watch their team anyways.
Maybe.
Those are not the avid football fans that you want.
Well,
it doesn't hurt. The way to think about it is
anyway.
It doesn't hurt to have them.
Right.
But that's not who you want. You want the guy who's streaming 4 games on 4 devices.
He's going to watch anyway, so you're not losing him anyway. What I'm getting
at
is
then it doesn't matter.
It does matter because you're going to lose those people that are going to watch because Ohio State's in and not out. If Ohio State's in, their fan base way bigger than Kansas State's. They're going to have a lot more people watching those same games. You're not going to get as big a fan base watching if Kansas State is playing Tulane. It's not going to happen. You're not going to have the viewership. It's just it's numbers. That's why they do this. And you know that this is all about entertainment and the value, right? And so you can't tell me that there's not a committee member somewhere that's they're not being leaned on at some point in time, or would be if the decision was, hey, I know Alabama's number 9 right now, but we really need them to be number 8 so they can make it to the 18 playoff.
Gotcha.
Because we don't want Missouri.
I completely agree with that statement. That stuff is not surprising to me, right? That's kind of happening. It's happening before.
Sure.
It's happening now. It will happen then. That's not news. That's not even notable really, because it exists. Right? Deaf teams get chosen all the time. Even for like the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl, teams get chosen to play in it. All right, and it's definitely based on that. That being said, the playoffs, or Florida State versus Oregon, right?
Yeah.
Was that the first year of the playoffs?
Yeah, that was the first year college football semifinal.
And and the other game was who? Ohio State.
Ohio State beat. They
beat Alabama.
Alabama, yeah.
And then played Oregon.
Yep.
Florida State, Oregon had more eyes on it than Alabama, Ohio State. 2 of the most historically significant fan bases got outviewed by this scheme team from the Northwest, and the big mouth Jameis Winston. What that proved at that time was that it didn't matter. The matchup is what matters, right? You can throw in a little extra, but does that little extra actually mean that much? No, because I'm at work with it on my phone.
But you also had the former Heisman Trophy winner and the reigning Heisman Trophy winner in that game.
But see, that's my point though. So if the former Heisman Trophy winner is at Tulane and the reigning one's at Kansas State, you're going to get the same deal, right?
If that was to happen, yeah.
Right.
But
what I'm saying is that it's not going to matter nearly as much as it seems. It's not going to water it down. It's going to force these historically good teams and their historically large fan bases to endure losses to teams that they try not to play. That is what makes it good. That's what makes it beneficial. Is I don't give a shit if there's 2 million less eyes on the game. I want the game to be good, and I want Ohio State to start getting some realistic expectations about how their team performs against true widespread competition, not just the 20 teams that they play every couple, like on cycle over like a 5-year span. Like, let's see how you do against Oregon. Okay, now let's see how you do against Kansas State. Those are very different teams. Okay, you won those two. Now let's see how you do against Alabama. Right, you're gonna get to catch all 3 tiers of it, and God forbid Kansas State goes on a run and wins the whole damn thing. It's improbable, but they clearly had to be that good, and then it becomes a Cinderella story. Now you're tuning in to find out. Yeah. Also, I think there's a lot of people who do that thing where when your team loses to somebody, you then follow that team to see
sometimes
how far they're gonna go.
I can see that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and did you hear about? Oh, see, now this is back up here because I didn't have this ready. You heard me talking about the football games this weekend or no?
I caught some of it.
Yeah, some big games this weekend. So, Ohio State, Michigan, everyone's going to watch, right? I mean, you have to.
It's probably the most impactful game on the schedule.
I am not going to be able to see all of the game, unfortunately. I'm only going to see the first part of it. Got things to do on Saturday. Got to go out and do things. But, I would love to be able to sit down and watch that game. I don't think there's another. The Florida State-Florida game would be interesting to watch. And the Washington.
That's because you're curious to know about,
is Florida State?
Are they going to do it?
Yeah. Without their quarterback, is it going to be fine? And then, of course, the Apple Cup.
I think A&M LSU is.
That's a good game.
A 7-4 team versus an 8-3 team. Jaden Daniels is trying to make his case for why he's the best player in college football. Which, by the way, all 3 Heisman Trophy candidates are all. I don't care what you say about Jaden Daniels. He's from the Pac-12.
Right. It's true.
He's trying to make his case, but that A&M team's not terrible. So they're not like a top 10 team like they try to make them every year. But I think that game's got a lot of good interest around it outside of the big ones.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I think so.
All right. Anything else?
No, I think we did it.
Okay. You say so. I believe it. So that's all we have for today. We're going to talk next week after the Civil War. I'm going to still call it Civil War. You still call it Civil War?
I still call it Civil War. They started calling it again.
They call it? Did they?
ESPN called it the Civil War the other day.
I like that because I think that's what it should be. I don't know why we stopped calling it Civil War.
You had a moment where you had to kind of deal with people and you dealt with them and then you move on.
Yeah. Anyway. So we're talking about the Civil War. We'll talk about that Oregon Michigan. The college football playoff is going to come down to the conference championship games, right? And we will know more at that point. So we're definitely going to talk about those 4 games, right? And how the Final Four that we think is going to happen. And we'll cover all that. We'll cover a little bit more NFL. We'll talk about what happens. Crazy NFL. I can't even wrap my head around the NFL and who's the best team. I have no idea. So we'll talk more about that. A little bit about the NBA. Whatever else happens to pop up and catch our fancy. And trivia question, obviously, don't forget the trivia question. Again, our stuff is online, lammsports.com. You can go check out the webpage. The links to the past shows and the current trivia question are on the website. This has been a Brain Rock production, a division of Lonely Tree Media. I want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.